Okay, let's call this meeting the Haysville Planning Commission to order. First item of business is the roll call.
Lund,
Here.
Rinky,
Here.
Franken, Zier,
Here.
Coleman, Adkins,
Here.
Williams.
Here.
Next item of business is the approval of minutes of July 13th, 2023.
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes.
I'll second. Have a motion second to approve. All in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? Any abstentions?
One.
Next item of business is the review of the sign regulations in the appendix. Are those both together, or you want
Yeah,
to handle them separately?
we need to handle them separately because, so the code's not totally updated online yet, but so all of those site developments are moved into their own appendix.
Okay.
So parking and then sign is their own, so, you guys did review this last meeting, there was some questions and some clarifications that needed to be done, so I'm kinda gonna go over everything again, but just so everything was removed from 16B to, it will now, what I believe to be Appendix D, but that will be changed when they put that in the municipal code. And on what you have is, the bottom is page 5, starts exemptions. On section D5, you guys had discussed last time, which is gonna be on page, you have 16B8. The education was added to exemptions for temporary signs for special events, for public, charitable, religious, educational, fraternal organizations. We also added that they can be put up only 4 weeks prior, and they have to be taken down 48 hours afterwards. So that's something, we just added the education in there. And then we added an exemption for fees for those temporary signs also. So that would be number 11 that is on there. So any questions on that? And that was something you guys had asked last time to be added for the exemptions, okay. And then on section D11, the changing of the temporary freestanding sign allowance for commercial and industrial zones. Just to clarify, we changed it to 1 sign per street frontage, 75 feet between each sign, a maximum of 4 signs per lot. And that had some discussions from I think that's what she was confused with, some of the language from Wichita, so. And then any reference to fees, that they were moved to chapter 17 throughout, anything like that. And from discussion from the last meeting, I just wanna clarify, and so I am on page 7. At the bottom, it was asked where political signs are covered, and that's on under number 8, any sign covered by KSA. So that's the political sign reference and where that's covered at in the sign code. It was added in here, for example, but I want to scratch that for example and just have political signs right there for anybody reading the code. It's just a little bit simpler.
Yeah.
On the next page at the top, it was also asked about where garage sale signs are covered. They are under number 9. They're an exemption. They still have to be out of the road right away. Same thing there. I want to remove that, for example, garage sale, and I want to put it down as F underneath there, and I want to put garage sale estate signs, so it's very clearly, you know where they're covered at in the code. So that is all the changes I have for that.
Any discussion? I would entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve the sign code as presented, sign regulations.
I'll second. We need to stipulate with the changes that you just talked about.
Yeah, with the
Yes.
changes.
With changes.
Thank you.
I'll second. Have a motion second to approve with changes. All in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? Next item is the site development regulations for parking.
So same thing with this. This is kind of going over this again. There were some questions, and I believe you guys tabled this from last time.
We did.
So same thing, everything in reference to 16B is gonna be moved to appendix. Under off-street parking for short-term residential rental use, this was added, and I apologize, you're gonna have to go to the chart where it says land use on it. Short-term residential rental was an use that was added on the chart. So this is for if someone fills out an application for an Airbnb, they have to follow along with these parking requirements. Part of this was pulled from, chapter 5, I think, as far as, the gross vehicle weight and everything, for we don't want semis or those large trucks on residential streets. So I think there was some discussion about a single-family residential and what was required in the subdivision. So this is a use. So single-family residential, the one per dwelling unit is totally separate. But if someone is gonna use their house as a Airbnb, then they have to have one per sleeping room. Parking of commercial vehicles larger than what is commonly referred to as a 1-ton truck. Then the gross weight, all that, is not permitted by transient guests. Up to 2 on-street parking spaces may be substituted for required off-street parking if the property contains a frontage of 22 feet or more, not including approaches, sidewalk ramps, and no parking zones.
That's not long enough. Where'd you pull that from?
Someplace else.
22 feet is the standard for one on-street parking, assuming that you have adjacent parking next to it, so that'll give you room to get out.
Okay,
That should be 20, it should be 44. Or
okay.
the resultant of, oh God, that's gonna break my head. I'm gonna cheat.
You're okay. So you wanna look at changing that to,
Yeah. I think it's 18. 18 plus, the 22 is for individual spaces. You could just make it 44.
okay? So change that to 44 feet?
Yeah, if you look at the parking code, and this is off-street, but I'm pretty sure on-street parking is 18 plus your buffer space of 2 feet on either side. You combine those for 2 spaces for 4 feet
Okay,
to get to 22, and you have another 18 feet on the other side.
and that would be for 2 cars,
Yeah.
okay? We can make that change to 44. Any other,
So,
It's 40.
yeah, so I have a
Yeah.
question on this. So we're saying 1 per sleeping room for like an Airbnb. If it's like a 5-bedroom house, you're saying it's gotta have 5 on-street parking spots?
Yeah, because they could theoretically rent
Hold
out
on.
each of those 5 rooms.
Could.
so off-street, so if they have a double car driveway,
Okay,
they can park, so off-street is, so 1 per sleeping room would be, off-street would be your driveway. So they could
Gotcha.
have 4, but they can substitute, up to 2 on-street
On-street.
park.
I
Yeah.
was talking on-street. Okay.
You have to have 40 foot of frontage.
Right,
That would allow 2 cars.
So like a cul-de-sac, probably not all of them would work.
right.
Yeah.
And
Okay.
that's just not having, the biggest complaints that, kind of looking at if we were gonna have short-term rentals, parking, and we would address that here, noise, would be addressed by, the rest of the code.
Right.
So, okay, and then on section off-street parking for daycare, limited home occupation was added in the use chart, so that's just down there that we added that. And then you guys had talked about, education facilities. We've reviewed Wichita and Derby. The one thing we didn't have split out was middle school. We did add that in there, so it's 1 per teacher, employee plus 10 visitor spaces that we added. That does match what Wichita and Derby have.
So high school goes from 4 to 5, 1 per 4 to 5 students.
And that, sorry, yes.
Did we pull that from somewhere else?
That matches Wichita and Derby.
Okay.
If you wanna leave it at 5, we
I'm
can.
just curious if they're already compliant or if we're creating a different issue.
Yeah.
Well, are you talking about our school now?
Yeah.
Well, they would be what the code was before.
Grandfathered in.
Mhm.
Okay. Any new school, however.
Would have to be in compliant with this.
Okay.
So, off-street parking for daycare general, this term was changed in the usage chart, so that was where it was changed from center, scratched out and put in general.
So, can I go back real quick?
Yeah.
Mhm.
So even if they do new construction around the school, does that still grandfather them in? Or now do they have to become compliant?
So if they would build a new building, then they would have to provide adequate parking for that. So it would probably be based off the square footage. So not necessarily they wouldn't be allowed for what they have now, but if they would add in, they would take away parking, it would have to be looked at, and they would have to add additional parking for that building.
And for senior high, we're technically making it less restrictive, so. It was the middle school not having a requirement and us just adding one
Yeah.
that I was curious about whether that was gonna create a problem.
Does that clarify everything that you guys had looked at last time that you wanted to address?
Yep.
Okay.
Any other discussion? A motion?
I'll motion to approve the review site development regulations parking 2023 with the proposed changes.
I'll second.
I have a motion second to approve with changes discussed. All in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? Under new business, we have the review of the subdivision regulations.
So this is the first time we've reviewed the subdivision regulations in a while. So with this, we do have to set a public hearing. We have that set for September 14th, but this is just going over the changes that we have proposed. And then we'll come back next month and have a public hearing and go over them again, and that'll be the official part that we recommend to council for changes. So with that, of course, dates and everything when the ordinance and formatting and everything would be changed. But under Article 1, Section 4, we renamed the urban growth boundary to urban area of influence as changed by Metro Area Planning Commission and Citrus County Board of County Commissioners. Article 3, Section 2, definitions, we updated that for the site vision triangle to match the zoning regulations. And Tim, you might mention something to me here with this. You've brought up in the past about the vision triangle with the street grade and landscaping.
Yeah.
That's actually in the landscaping plan, so we will have to look at that there with trees.
So, I'm looking at the sign regulations, and the site triangle in there is different. Because it's got a 25-foot leg instead of a 60-foot leg.
Did I miss it? Uh-oh.
No, I saw that.
16B-4. And I think part of the issue is one graphic looks like it's measured from the center of the street, and the other one is along the curb line.
Yeah, we definitely want to go with the one that's in the subdivision, is the one that matches the code.
Where are we at in here?
It's on page 13.
Yeah. On that, the subdivision regulations, page 13, and then the parking, page 16B-4. I mean, in my mind, those ought to just be the same graphic.
Yeah, so, we may need to go back and amend that motion to update the site triangle definition and the sign regulations to match the other.
So we can momentarily table this
Yes.
subdivision regulations, if so moved
So moved.
and seconded.
Second.
Motion second to table temporarily while we go back and fix something. So back to the review of sign regulations. Graphic on page 16B-4 and the text associated with should match what we were previously discussing in the subdivision regulations.
So that we want the zoning regulations, the subdivision regulations, the sign code to match
All
those.
to be the same, yeah,
And the diagram.
yes,
Okay,
for clarity.
Yes.
I agree. I didn't catch that one.
A motion?
I would make a motion to add the amendment on site triangle vision, well, site triangle, change it to site triangle, sorry, because it's vision triangle on the sign code and we want it to match.
So the text and the graphic
The
should all
text
be
and the
same.
graphic should all be the same, correct? As the,
Is there a second?
Second.
Motion second to amend the sign regulations to match the side triangle text and graphic. All in favor?
Aye.
aye.
Those opposed? Okay,
Oh, I'm glad you got that.
Now we'll go back to,
One thing too, that one is site, S-I-G-H-T, and one is site, S-I-T-E.
it should be GHT.
Yeah.
I'll get that corrected too.
Thank you. So back to the subdivision regulations on page 13.
Okay, so we'll get that corrected. Let's see, sorry, I gotta figure out where I'm at here. Then in Article 6, Section 1, we updated the principles of acceptability to reference that all public improvements shall be designed and installed in accordance with design policies, criteria, and specifications established by the city engineer. And this was, I added in here, because the city has a spec book, that they use for approaches and everything. And that's the, commercial approach that you keep asking me about that you
Yeah.
thought was in here. It's actually in that spec book.
That governs,
That gets,
that's what governs is the spec?
Yes, that's what they go off of.
Okay.
So I'm referencing that in here because that gets reviewed, I think, every 2 years. But that approach that you're wanting updated that they're gonna be looking at is in that book.
Okay.
So this addresses that. So,
Thank you.
and that's like the road standards and everything is in that too.
Yeah.
So, Article 6, Section 2, we updated the model floodplain management ordinance to the current ordinance, back from May. All fees were removed and moved to Chapter 17. And then the very last thing I had, on page 40, I had recommended a change of changing the word plat to plan. I want to leave that, so I want to disregard that change.
Okay.
And that's only suggested changes I have unless you guys have something else. And like I said, we would set this public hearing for Thursday, September 14th.
So I have a question on Article 6 stuff.
Which one?
Article 6, so the second sentence in there says furthermore, all subdivisions outside the city. Since this is for the city, do we need to remove stuff that's outside the city?
No,
Because
we
that's
have-
to the county and township.
You can plat in our area of influence, it still has to come before us.
Okay,
Mhm.
Were you in the design standards or a different one?
yes, design
Okay.
standards.
And,
I
yeah,
just want-
Tim.
Thank you, I just wanted to clarify.
Any other questions or discussion? Then I would entertain a motion. Do we need to act on this?
I don't think we need to act on this because this is just a review. Next time we will be doing the public hearing and you'll be given a recommendation.
Okay. But that'll give us a month to go through it on our own to see if there's anything else we have questions or think we need to update.
Yeah, and if you do have anything, if you could email me on that individually so that I can, look into it and try to get it addressed before then, that would be great. So,
Okay, no correspondence, no off agenda. Item 8,
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
motion and second to adjourn, all in favor?
Aye,
Aye.
Those opposed? Thank you, everybody.
thank you.